So the Austin shooter we covered yesterday, for people who don't remember, right, NPR identified, this is just the kind of bias that people may not know is taking place. And I wanted to reiterate it because some people missed this. NPR was once thought of as unbiased news. They named the race of the assailant, of the victim in several instances, but then never as it related to the Austin mass shooting, which is usually, right, a raison d'etre for the media. Mass shooting. Yeah. It's like catnip for dishonest reporters. But this is how they covered it.
A woman was killed in Minneapolis last night after a man drove his vehicle at high speed into a crowd of demonstrators. As Matt Sepik of Minnesota Public Radio reports, protesters detained the alleged attacker until police arrived.
The demonstrators blocked Lake Street in the city's uptown area to protest the killing of Winston Smith. Sheriff's deputies on a U.S. Marshals Service task force fatally shot the 32-year-old black man June 3rd while trying to arrest him on a firearms warrant. Local activist DJ Hooker says a driver accelerated through barricades and hit several parked cars, one of which struck and killed a woman sitting on the curb.
A car came at us going like 70 or 80 miles an hour.
And I just have to show this to you guys longer so you know it's not edited at all.
And it hit the car.
Video that Hooker took at the scene shows protesters detaining the apparent driver, a white man, and handing him over to police. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Now, the very next story.
Officials in Austin, Texas say a man has died of his injuries following a mass shooting downtown early Saturday morning.
No race for the man?
The shooting left more than a dozen people injured. At least one suspect has been arrested. Austin police say they think the shooting began as a dispute between two parties. The incident occurred along Austin's 6th Street, a popular nightlife destination. A winning bidder is set to join Jeff Bezos.
Now we're on to the next
story.
story.
Move right on.
I mean, it's almost pattern disruption. You're like, okay, here, a black man, okay, assailant, okay, a white man, and then, wait.
What?
Nothing? Well,
do they not know, Stephen? Do they not know?
Well, look, and this is the issue with people saying, why are you responding to it? Because the left, obviously, listen, when you understand critical race theory, when you understand identity politics, they absolutely are dividing our country more than we've ever seen. And they are creating, I've said this for a long time, I said this before these things started, before these current riots started. I said it before the 2016 election. I was really worried that you were going to create more racists. I just didn't know that we would actually have violent anti-white racism so quickly as an epidemic.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this. Especially as someone who goes to a mixed church, you're going to have the backlash. And you're going to have an epidemic of white people saying, all right, well, look, if you're going to vilify me and steal our stuff, and there's no accountability except for me being the evil villain, and I'm taught that in school, guess what? They're going to resent people of other races. This is what worries me. You can't browbeat a kid, right? You can't browbeat a generation of young white straight males, particularly, for stuff they didn't do. Stuff that existed generationally ago that we all agree, horrible, slavery, of course. Glad we had the Civil War. Understand it. But you can't browbeat a kid and say, I'm stealing your stuff. Why? Because you're white. Okay. I'm beating you up. Why? Because you're white. I'm shooting up your mouth. Why? Because you're white. Until he goes, oh, it's a race thing. And then you end up with a race war. Stop it. Turn it back. Turn it back, guys. I'm hoping it's not too late. I said this in 2015, but here we are. I didn't know that it would turn on so quickly. So the Austin American-Statesman, they also refused to provide a description to avoid perpetuating stereotypes, they said, which, by the way, is in and of itself kind of racist.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You're assuming stuff.
Well, yeah.
Especially when you understand they released the mugshot. Here you go. Yep, there you go. Well.
So it's a lead singer of Counting Crows?
Yes.
He's white, though.
You said that it creates this backlash in kind of the white community. We're made the perpetrator of all things wrong, right?
Right.
It does the opposite on the other side. It actually encourages black people to think the only reason that you're being held down right now in society is because of systemic racism, because of white people. So it puts this group as the victim all the time. White people now are being victimized by crime and get backlash, and it tells this group it's okay to do it. Yeah. You're telling both sides to go fight each other. That's all you're doing.
Fake victim culture creates real victims.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
Yeah, of course.
100%.
The problem with all of it, too, is you are saying the color, except for the one group, and you are hiding the stuff. It's a stereotype if we say that it's him. Yeah, those type of shootings in particular aren't usually a black guy. That's why they didn't say his name, because you would automatically think it was a white guy.
Right. Well, actually, statistically, mass shootings are 4 or more, and most of those are gang shootings.
I realize that statistic is very much so.
Right.
But when you think of somebody who like shoots up an office, you're not thinking black guy. That's just the reality.
It's true, and they're very, very few and far between as far as gun crime statistics. This is something that we need to talk about. And by the way, a common argument for what people have been presenting why the police didn't identify the suspect was because he's a minor. Oh, how fast before we knew Kyle Rittenhouse's name? And how long before we knew that he shot a serial convicted pedophile?
I'm sorry, 17's a minor?
Mass shootings across the country, but really across the state of Texas. And now there are barely any gun control laws in your city, in your state. Are your police now changing the way they respond? Do they need to?
You know, what our state legislature, what our state just did with respect to allowing anyone to carry a firearm without registration is just absolutely outrageous. I mean, one thing's clear, greater access to firearms doesn't equal greater safety.
Police certainly don't want this. More guns on the streets make it harder for the police to do their job, and Washington isn't helping.
Right. Keep in mind that one of the shooters, he was 17. He couldn't legally own a firearm.
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, MSNBC totally contradicted themselves later when people are no longer paying attention. And something minor. Here you go.
Doug Cantor died and was killed this weekend in Austin because 2 people had guns they shouldn't have had.
Yes!
Hey, that's our whole point.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.